Hi, everyone. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend and co-host Ken Miller, as always. And on this episode of Random Fit, we are in episode 4 of our fun little fitness fairy tale episodes that we're doing. This one is specifically thinking about Little Red Riding Hood and navigating the dangers of overtraining. So when we think about where the big bad wolf is, we're talking about, of course, overtraining and burnout, which can lead to injury.
And just like Little Red Riding Hood, she saw the sharp teeth and she saw the sharp claws. We want you to recognize those dangers when it comes to overtraining. So we'll talk about hormones, we'll talk about training programming, and we'll talk about some recovery strategies to avoid that overtraining. So like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5 out of 5 rating when you can, and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Random Fit. Wendy Batts and Ken Miller dive into fitness talk that's anything but ordinary. From the classics to the quirky, proud winner of a Gold Marcom Award.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend and co-host, as always, Ken Miller. Ken, how are you?
I'm great, Wendy. How you doing?
I am great. Today we are talking about episode 4 of our fairy tale series. If you guys missed 1, 2, or 3, you should definitely go back and listen to them because Ken and I covered some amazing information. Just as a quick summary, in episode 1, we talked about Goldilocks, if you will, and how we want the stress of our body to be just right, and talked about what happens when we're off balance. Episode 2, we did the 3 little pigs, so building your fitness foundation and talking about the importance of progressive overload. And number 3, we just did Jack and the Beanstalk and growing our vertical jump. So we talked a lot about the stretch shortening cycle. And today on episode 4, we are talking about navigating the dangers of overtraining. So think about the big bad wolf and what we can do to keep those negative things away. So Ken, I'm excited about today because, I mean, again, love the vertical stuff, love the power things. That's totally in my wheelhouse. But this one is also super important.
Yeah, you got to avoid the big bad wolf. For those of you that don't remember the fairy tale story of Little Red Riding Hood, here she goes. She's going through the woods and she's making her way to grandma's house. And then what happens? Well, the big bad wolf is there. And unfortunately, he does some bad things to grandma. But you know, there's a telltale signs that the wolf who's pretending to be grandma, right? My, what a big nose you have. Why, my, what sharp teeth you have. So when it comes to navigating the danger,
It's like you
I
just
had
read
a,
it yesterday. I mean, how do you
yeah,
remember all this stuff?
you don't remember Little Red Riding Hood
Of
and
course
the
I
Big
do, but
Ben?
not like all of that until you
Well,
said it.
I watched a lot of cartoons also when I was younger. So this was the one where, you know, it's like the wolf is trying to pretend like it's grandma. But, well, depending on what version of Little Red Riding Hood that you listen to. But I digress. When it comes to avoiding the big bad wolf, what we're really talking about on this episode when it comes to the fitness fairy tales is avoiding the dangers of overtraining. So if you're an exerciser and you like to work out hard, you like to push yourself to the limits, one of the things that we need to pay attention to are identifying symptoms of or warnings of overtraining, which Wendy, you and I have both worked with professional and collegiate athletes, and you know they operate at the highest levels, right? And for them to be competitive, for them to have the power and the strength and the stability to be what they need to be on the court, everybody wants to push themselves to be that guy. But one of the things that gets neglected is overtraining. And the signs and the symptoms are there, but we tend to avoid them, or we don't know what they look like to begin with. So, Wendy, you want to look at one of the more obvious ones, but not so obvious ones when it comes to avoiding overtraining?
Well, I mean, there's two that I think kind of go hand in hand. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, guys, we really push ourselves so much in training and in the gym and in our workouts. And this is what we need to do. And this is my training workout for this, and this. And I'm going to push myself and, you know, go, 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 go. But I think the biggest thing at that point, what I notice, and this is a telltale sign, is I see performance decline And then that actually goes in relation with persistent fatigue. They come they'll come in, people are exhausted, they're not sleeping well. And that's a clinical sign of overtraining. It's what we call the overtraining syndromes, or some of the syndromes or things that we notice on a bad level. Rest and recovery are super crucial, especially to avoid the injury and the burnout. And that's the whole purpose. I mean, if I had to summarize it, that's it. But if our body doesn't have time to recover, then there are certain things that start to happen. And if we are really trying to push someone and achieve certain performance keystone or milestones, and we see that there's a decrease happening in their performance, especially when they should be increasing, then that tells me that I need to take a step back, or I need to figure out what they're doing to, like, alongside of maybe what I'm programming that maybe I have missed. And this goes along with, we talk about professional athletes, but this is everybody. I mean, because if you're a weekend warrior and you're hitting it really hard on performance and activities and stuff during the weekends, and then you're staying up late, you're not sleeping well, you're doing different things, you're doing kids sports, you're a coach, you're out there still doing things in a high level, and you're not giving your body, you're kind of overreaching and not giving your body time to recover, then that is going to lead to significant changes in your performance outcome. And it is something that if you feel fatigued all the time, you need to stop and look at how much recovery you're doing. And if you don't have anything programmed, you really want to start to take a step back and add that in.
Right. And when it comes to that, I mean, we're not just talking about collegiate or professional athletes. We're talking about the person that goes to the local gym or the local health club, and they're wondering, why am I not getting stronger? If anything, I am getting weaker. Why am I not getting faster? Why am I only lasting on the treadmill 25 minutes versus the 45 minutes? Well, it's all the points that you bring up, Wendy. Your body's just tired. And when I get posed that question, and I love to hear what your experience is, but when I get posed that question, I say, hey, just take a break, right? Do something else instead of that 45-minute time on the treadmill that you were dedicating yourself to. Why don't you go on one of our beautiful East Bay trails, take the dog out, go for a walk, go for a hike, pack a lunch, eat somewhere out in one of those rolling hills, and get your cardio that way. Go, find an incline and go up and down a couple times, but kind of do something different, something less intense, something more recovery oriented. And Wendy, I just see some people just go, they do a 180. I say, get out of the gym for a week or two, do something else. I'll give them some alternatives, body weight exercises, calisthenics, go walk on the beach, go walk in one of the regional trails. And they come back and they are just rejuvenated. They're back to where they were before they started feeling that level of fatigue. But just getting out and then from there reflecting on how they feel and being able to recognize it. And based on what you said, Wendy, a lot of people just don't see it. They're in denial, or they don't recognize it as being a sign of overtraining.
Well, and I think too, I mean, that's where technology is it's a win, and it's also a tattletale on you, because if you notice too, especially some of my athletes, they have some sort of technology that they use on a consistent basis to see how well they're sleeping, see how many steps they did, whatever the technology someone's using. A lot of things that are being measured now is the resting heart rate. And I ask people, especially if they didn't sleep well, or I'm like, hey, can you tell me about your data? Like, how has it been trending? Are you noticing something that's a little bit different? Because obviously I'm not walking around taking someone's resting heart rate. I'm also not seeing what they're doing when they're not with me for the hour or two or whatever we're scheduled for. So if somebody has like an elevated resting heart rate, that's a classic sign that your sympathetic nervous system or activation or whatever is indicating that the body is, I don't want to say permanently, but it's like stuck in this like fight or flight mode. And so you're not giving your body a chance to recover. And you're basically stuck in this chronic stress area of life. And you don't want to be there, because if you're stuck there, then that does a lot of things to your cortisol levels. It's doing a lot of things to your hormones. There's a lot of things that are going to happen on a negative side has nothing to do with the actual programming it yourself. It's how your body's reacting to that type of programming or exercise program that you have, laid out for yourself. So we always talk about journaling and making sure that you're doing different exercises and this, that, and the other. But if you didn't get a chance to tune in to one of Ken and I's podcasts that we've done a while ago on ways to recover, we call it active recovery. If you're starting to feel this and you notice that your resting heart rate is elevated and you're not sleeping well and you just feel really tired and burnt out, then maybe, like you said, instead of taking time out of the gym, if you feel like you have to go, like this is your routine, it's in your calendar, that's when you take a step back and start adding in foam rolling and different type of stretching and doing maybe some stabilization work and some activation work, which will give your body still a chance to recover, but on a different level than making it very intense and push. Because once you get into that area of stress, it's hard to get out of.
Wendy, do you watch your, on your Garmin, are you watching your heart rate when you're sleeping? Do you look at it in the morning?
Well, I don't watch it while I'm sleeping, but
No.
I do. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because I wear multiple different types of technology, but my Garmin is the one that I consistently wear. A lot of it too is because the charge lasts for so long that I can just wear it like from sun up to sundown when I shower and everything. So it's like part of my body. But it is very eye-opening when I see what they call my body battery, which is like how much am I charged up for the next day. And it's on the lower end. And I might have felt like I slept okay. But then when I also start looking at my actual stats, I can tell when I've had like, my resting heart rate's been elevated. I can see my body battery is low. I mean, we say technology is not necessarily a positive, but I think on that factor of really learning more about your body and how you feel, and then looking at like, based on, I thought I slept well, but according to this data, not so much.
Yeah, well, one of the things why I brought that up, that body battery is huge. It's like, man, I only got 54 last night. And I think I even screenshotted it to you when I got 100% on my body battery. You remember that little exchange?
I do. That was only once.
It was that. I think that was the once and only time. But what I look at is the resting heart rate. So how low did my heart rate get when I was asleep? Because from that vantage point, if it gets low, that means your body is recovering, right, or recovered. But what the elevated heart rate tells me is that my body is still actively trying to recover. So my heart rate's up, my heart is working, trying to work on the recovery side of things. So that's where, if you do a wearable, and since we're talking about heart rate, resting heart rate, we also want to make sure that, if you have it available to you, look at it. And sometimes that is a sign that's going to tell you that's okay. Well, maybe you need to rest a little bit, right? Maybe you need to take off of the training, knock it down a little bit, do another phase of training, like you mentioned, Wendy, with the foam rolling and the stretching and incorporating other recovery tools like that. But also with the heart rate variability, seeing is it low or is it high? Is your body recovered from that standpoint? So combining those two signs or two indicators from what your heart can tell you, heart rate variability, as well as resting heart rate. It's going to tell you how well you're recovering or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, we also, when you think of it too, we're talking about, your cortisol levels. We don't want those high all the time because we don't want to be in that fight or flight. But I think it's also important to say on the other side, there's something called like your decreased anabolic hormone, which that is particularly, basically you see a significant drop in anabolic hormones when your body is overly stressed or you're into overtraining. And it's particularly what they're looking at is your testosterone to cortisol ratio. This is what they're claiming is a widely used marker on your recovery status. And so, we want everything to have a good balance because that's truly how we're building our muscle and keeping from overtraining. Because again, too, if we start to have these levels of high cortisol, lower anabolic hormones, and we have that as not a good balance, right? So one's really high and then our ratios are off, then our body isn't functioning as ideally as possible. And so again, if you have high cortisol, it's going to affect so many different other hormones and then your organs and everything too. And it leaves you in this chronic stress level that can significantly lead to not just improper sleep and everything like that, but long term, I mean, it can really on a health standpoint be very negative when you're like, but I'm working out, and research has said if I'm going to the gym and I'm hitting it hard and I'm doing this and I'm trying to avoid sarcopenia and I don't want to lose muscle mass and I want to do this, you got to take a stop and realize that there has to be balance. And I think oftentimes, we start losing that balance and we think that more is better, and more is not better. A balanced program is best.
Right.
How about
And yeah, I agree 100%. And in those cases, when the word testosterone comes up, my first thing is to send my client, when it comes to testosterone levels, is to send them to the doctor. And in some cases it has helped, because as I have older clients in their 50s plus, their test levels, they're starting to decline. It's just about how much they've declined. And for some clients that are on some kind of hormone replacement therapy, they've actually seen better results when it comes to not just the performance with me when they're working out with me, but also things like sleep and fatigue, pain and inflammation. Those things can resolve too. Because again, if you're talking about the stress hormone cortisol, right? Cortisol is a part of the inflammatory process, right? Because it's a part of the breaking down of tissue. So now, that's just one thing, staying within the scope of practice, to go into, go to the medical side if need be, especially when we're talking about hormones.
Well, and I think that's important too. I mean, I've openly said to you and to some of my friends, I mean, I've gone to a functional doctor to get blood work done at a more detailed level. I mean, I still do my checkups and stuff, my annual checkups, and I get blood work done by them, but it's like, I want an actual breakdown. And it's actually very fascinating too, because as women age and as women hold more stress, not saying that men don't, but their testosterone levels also start to decrease very commonly. And so when you hear testosterone, you automatically think of a guy, right? You want more testosterone to get big and bulky and blah, 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 blah. We need balance as well. So sometimes, your indicators may be lower on the testosterone side, where you also you're also going to have muscle growth issues, but it's also going to lead to fatigue, lack of sleep, and more, like I always say, emotional breakdowns, because that's the way the doctor started to describe it. Like, she was looking at all my panels and she's like, so tell me, do you ever have emotional breakdowns? I'm like, no, but it's interesting because that's how she asked me. And I'm like, well, should I, like, are my levels low? Like, what are you saying? So it's one of those things where, sometimes getting a doctor to actually just do your blood work, it tells the whole story. And then you find out maybe, are you lacking something? And then some of it could be you're working out too much or not enough. So it tells on you that way too.
Right. And it's just one more question that can be answered, right? Because if you're hitting your head against the wall, like, I'm trying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and you're still not improving, you're still feeling tired, fatigue, it's another resource that and for a lot of people should be explored. So Wendy, outside of going to the medical side of looking at what we can do to overcome recovery, now what we want to look at is your nutrition, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
My nutrition, let's not look at mine. Why don't that? I've really been trying to be better, just so you know. But
that's yeah,
I think, that's going to kind of lead to the muscle tissue repair. So when we look at like protein or protein synthesis, if you will, we're trying to think of the rest periods between your muscle protein synthesis. Gosh, I can't even say it. Synthesis. That's the process when we talk about that. I mean, some of these words are super complex, but the process that our body uses protein to repair the muscles. I mean, it's very simple. And, we want to think when we're repairing the muscles, we're repairing these micro tears. Like when you go work out or you put stresses on the body, you actually have micro tears to the muscles. And people are like, oh, my muscles are tearing. No, that's part of, like, that's how you build growth. That's how you're working and stressing the body. These micro tears are normal. That they just occur in life when you put any demand or stress, whether it's in the gym or outside of it. If you're lifting or moving something heavy, you're also going to have that. But if you don't have a net protein balance, it's negatively right after exercise if it can have like, what way am I trying to say this? Like, we want a balance, but there's also time that we need that's required for our body to actually recover. And if we don't do that, we're not going to build hypertrophy. If you're like looking to get big and that's what your goal is, if you don't have enough protein and you don't actually have enough rest in between, the body doesn't have, or your body doesn't have time to repair the muscles. And then you're not giving yourself a chance to actually grow, like the muscles to grow. I guess that's the simplest way of saying it. I don't say it as eloquently as you, I guess, but that's basically the short and skinny of it. Just rest, don't overtrain.
Rest. Yeah. Again, if you did all that you're talking about, Wendy, we wouldn't have a podcast episode to record. So again, I guess in the context of overtraining, we're not talking about fueling for a workout. We're talking about like as you said, Wendy, is the net protein balance post workout, so that your muscles can begin to rebuild, right, from all that damage that you did to it because of the stress of the workout. The body doesn't like to encounter a lot of stress. So what does it do? It wants to build back stronger so that the next time it encounters that level of stress, right, it's going to be better prepared for it. And you need protein to make that happen. Now, I think one of the things that I share with my clients is that, when you have an intense workout, this is why I don't do back-to-back days of workouts with my clients. If anything, it's going to be staggered out, another 2 days, maybe even 3 days after that, depending on the intensity of the workout. So I want to give them, a good a day or two in between, especially on, let's say if we're doing a phase 5 power-based workout, something that's high intensity, both in resistance and in speed, then I want to make sure that the next time they're going to be with me, they're ready to go. So, and in between that, they're going to do some kind of recovery-based workout. But the nutrition is one of the biggest things that I talk about. So if I train with a client in the evening, I go, what's for dinner? And then if they list off something, I go, well, why don't you throw some chicken on that, or throw in some kind of whey protein to kind of augment what your dinner doesn't give you. So if you're just going to have pasta and tomato sauce, well, let's get you those grams of protein that your body needs to make sure that you're well recovered. And I think when it comes to that, we're also making sure that your glycogen stores are full, and then that way when you do your next workout, you're ready to rock and roll. But it's that time, like you said, Wendy, so eloquently, you give your body, your muscles, time to rest and recover. That way you can have just as good, if not a better workout 1 or 2 days later, or 2 or 3 days later, depending on the intensity.
Well, and I think another big area that we should discuss too is if you get into the overtraining category, then your body is eventually, you could possibly get sick. And so there is a correlation between overtraining and then also people that are becoming ill, and your body is just completely run down. And you've got to think that if you have chronic stress and it stays within your body and your system, then over time, this is going to make you more vulnerable to sickness or illnesses that are out there, where your body usually can fight some of that off. So, if you keep thinking about levels of a stress and what the body's supposed to do, if you have a suppressed immune system, then you're going to actually be out of the gym even longer, and possibly be out longer to where you're almost having to start from the scratch, depending on what type of illness or sickness it can be. I think we also think too, chronic inflammation, that's a big one. I mean, because that's kind of part of it too. And we have to think, if you have constant muscle damage your elevated cortisol levels, which you've talked about. We've got the ratio differentiation. That's going to lead to low grade inflammation throughout the body. And so then you don't even feel well. And so you can get sick with illnesses because they're airborne and your body can't fight it off. You're also having these chronic inflammation that you can't see, but you just don't feel like yourself. But I think a big one, Ken, that sometimes if we're not careful, if we're really pushing programming and you start to overtrain and you're seeing all these symptoms, I think psychologically it can actually have more of an illness, if you will, type issue, because people feel that if they don't go to the gym and they don't push themselves hard and they don't keep on doing this, they're not going to see the gains. If they take a day off and if they rest or they recover or whatever, then they're going to have all this loss, which isn't the case. So, people then start to have seriously emotional issues. And, and I don't know if you've ever witnessed that. Unfortunately, I have, especially with like an actual professional athlete, where we literally had to sit her down and say, listen, you need to take a step back because it wasn't healthy.
Right. It's not. And before I add on to that thought, I just want to read this announcement from Random Fit, that this episode of Random Fit is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access free CEUs, and more. And that's huge, guys. All this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. And Wendy, to your point, not just talking about illness and having to take the time off, you've had, and I think part of what makes you who you are as a professional is that people who've had injuries and coming back from injuries and having to take the time off, whether it's overuse related injuries where they get the nagging pain, or let's say that little bit of tendonitis here, tendonitis there, and they, what do you tell them to do? You gotta give your body some rest. So whether that's sickness, and ironically enough, I've got 3 clients that are out right now for like week and a half. There's something going around to where they're just beat down. And knowing who these 2 are, they are very high. They rev it really, they red line it. When they come to me, it's more about they come to me to kind of decompress a little bit sometimes, but sometimes the higher intensity workouts will actually help them kind of blow off some steam. But talking about illness, that if you're stressed mentally, if you're stressed physically, your body doesn't know the difference. Stress is stress. So mental stress, physical stress, I mean, they'll have different effects, but it does affect, again, that word cortisol keeps coming up in this episode, but that is one of the key markers for stress. So when you put those 2 things together, someone who's putting a lot of pressure on themselves to perform, and somebody who is putting a lot of pressure on themselves to work out hard and play hard and practice hard and compete hard, if they don't back off, the effects on the body is that, okay, you only have so much energy that's going to be distributed to what the body wants to do. So if your body's going to spend energy on performance and training, it's not putting that level of energy in the immune system. And so from that vantage point, they open the doors to get themselves sick, or they just don't feel well. And like my client just, he texted me on Tuesday and says, I'm still about 70%. And this is already after being out for a whole week. I could say, come in, we'll do something else, but it's like, spend that other 30%, that gap that you have, since you're not 100%, put it into sleeping, eating well, relaxing, read a magazine, watch a comedy or something like that. Read them. Who reads magazine? Well,
I don't know where. I mean, maybe that's a California thing, but all right.
When you go to the beach.
Yeah, because I go on the daily. So
yeah. Well, that's I could walk 100 yards and I'm looking at some water, Wendy. So
Me.
we we take a magazine. You can get it. You can get sand on it. But take some time to, and you got to put energy back into. You got to put energy back into the body and dedicate, some attention to, getting better. But yeah, like you started to talk about there, Wendy, as far as that pressure on themselves and that feeling that, okay, I'm a failure if I don't work out, or my day isn't complete until I get my workout. And that's a different kind of issue, but it is a real issue when it comes to stress and what causes this stress or this effect of overtraining.
Well, and like you said, I mean, I think, when you've got emotional and physical exhaustion, I mean, that's a problem. And so obviously that is the biggest indicator, on top of, like, when we talked in the very beginning, your performance. You start to see a deficit in things where you had certain gains and then it kind of completely halted, plateaued, and then start to drop. I think that the biggest, like, kind of takeaway that I have for this is, if you're noticing that you're just exhausted and that, you think that you're doing everything right, take a look at your programming and see, are you pushing yourself too hard, too much, too fast? And if any of the indicators that we've talked about on this show, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, how your body's adapting, how you're sleeping at night, then you have to really take a step back and look at your rest and recovery and say, what am I doing during that time? I mean, we've done podcasts on earthing and reading and different types of kind of ways on the emotional and mental side that you can kind of bring yourself down if you feel like you're very high stressed. I say that because, again, I do fall into a lot of that category. And sometimes I had to take a strong look at myself. It was really hard for me to do, because I'm like, no, I do this for a living. I'm fine. And it was go, 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 go. And then, Ken's like, I was redlining, and it was kind of like, then I had to try to find a balance. So you have to be open and just be able to talk about it. Like, hey, I know that I'm overtraining here and not doing enough on this side. And so it is hard to sometimes find balance. But, the body, if you have extreme high and chronic stress over a long period of time, you can have some serious physical long-term issues that you can stop now if you're noticing this, and then just take some time off. It's okay to take time off, because time is going to rejuvenate you, help your muscles, help you mentally, and then get you more excited to get back in there and start your program the way that you ideally need to be working out, versus push and go, go, go.
Yeah. And when you start saying to yourself, it's just not fun anymore, that's when and I know this last couple of minutes is starting to sound like an intervention, but it is, we do have to make time for ourselves mentally as well as physically. So, but again, if you're not a competitive athlete and you're doing this for the goodness of health, right, for improving your well-being, it's actually, we're kind of going back to the Three Little Pigs fairy tale, right? We're talking about hormesis and just the right amount of stress to create change. So it's not too little to where your body has no reason to change. It's not too much to where we're doing too much, but just the right amount. So with this episode, Wendy, when we're talking about the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood, it's just, if it's in your face, you just got to open your eyes and recognize overtraining when it's happening to you. So Wendy, thanks for your insight and sharing this intervention of getting me to stop overtraining. I get it. I got the message.
Just stop.
I got the message. But for those of you listening to both Wendy Batts and I, Ken Miller, here on our wonderful podcast of Random Fit, and we're talking about this 4th episode on the Fitness Fairy Tale series of Little Red Riding Hood, navigating the dangers of overtraining. Thank you for your time and attention. Like, follow, subscribe, download. Make sure you stay tuned for our 5th episode, which will be coming up. But outside of that, let us know what you want us to talk about on other episodes, and we'll get that on a show for you in the future. So until next time, everybody, take care and be well.
That's it for Random Fit. Wendy and Ken will be back with more fitness fun. Until then, keep moving and stay curious. like, share, and subscribe.